Welcome back to the Drowsorium. In our last chapter, we sat on the porch of a house made of glass. We marveled at how the residents of Rhyolite turned 50,000 empty beer bottles into a home, creating a fragile beauty in the middle of the harsh wasteland. But a city cannot survive on glass alone. It needs iron. It needs steam. It needs a lifeline to the outside world. Tonight, the silence of the desert is broken not by the wind, but by a mechanical scream. Tonight, we stand on the platform as three competing railroads race across the sands to claim the soul of the city. So rest your head, close your eyes, and listen for the rhythm of the wheels as the iron horse finally arrives in Rhyolite. The desert implies eternity. To look at the funeral mountains is to look at something that has not changed since the oceans receded. For a long time, Rhyolite was an island in this sea of time, disconnected, isolated, floating in the heat. Elias Thorne stood on the wooden platform of the newly constructed depot, his notebook open but the pages empty. The ink in his fountain pen felt sluggish in the December chill. It was late 1906. The air was crisp, a stark contrast to the oven-like heat of his arrival months ago. He looked south. Two parallel lines of steel cut through the scrub brush, stretching toward the horizon until they merged into a single, shimmering point. The tracks. For months they had been a rumor, then they were a cloud of dust on the horizon as the grading crews worked. Now they were a reality. The Las Vegas and Tonopah Railroad had finally reached the Bullfrog District. "You're squinting again, scribe," a voice rumbled. Elias turned to see Tom Kelly. The old mason looked different today. He wasn't wearing his usual work clothes caked in adobe mud. He wore a clean coat, though his hands still bore the rough texture of a man who worked with stone and glass. "I'm looking for the smoke," Elias replied. "It'll come," Kelly said, leaning against a wooden pillar. He packed his pipe with deliberate slowness. "Change always comes loud and dirty." Kelly had a complicated relationship with the railroad. On one hand, it meant timber. It meant he wouldn't have to scrounge for bottles to build walls. He could buy proper bricks, proper beams. On the other hand, Kelly was a man of the desert. He knew that the tracks were a leash, tying this wild, lawless place to the polite society of the coast. "Do you think it will save the town?" Elias asked. Kelly lit his pipe, the sweet smell of tobacco mixing with the scent of creosote. "Save it? Maybe. Or maybe it just speeds up the dying. Before, if you wanted to leave, you had to walk or ride a mule for days. Now you can buy a ticket and be in Los Angeles by tomorrow. Making it easy to come is good. Making it easy to leave, that's dangerous." It started as a vibration. Elias felt it in the soles of his boots before he heard it, a low rhythmic thrumming that traveled through the earth, shaking the loose sand around the platform. The coyotes in the distance fell silent. The wind seemed to hold its breath. Then came the sound, choff, choff, choff. It was a heavy, industrial breathing. A plume of black smoke rose above the ridge, staining the pristine blue sky. It looked violent, an artificial storm cloud approaching the city of gold. The crowd on the platform surged forward. It wasn't just miners and prospectors today, it was everyone. The financiers in their suits, the saloon girls in their mourning shawls, the shopkeepers, the children, they had all come to see the beast. And then it rounded the bend. The locomotive was a monster of black iron and brass. It was the Iron Horse, a machine that defied the logic of the wasteland. In a place where water was scarce and fuel was precious, this thing consumed both with voracious appetite to generate power. The whistle blew. Scream!
The sound was deafening. It echoed off the canyon walls, a shriek of triumph that announced the end of the frontier. Elias saw a few horses tethered nearby rear up in panic, their eyes wide. They knew their time was ending. The flesh and blood horse was being replaced by the steam and steel one. The brakes squealed, metal grinding against metal, sending up sparks as the massive wheels slowed. With a final, exhaling hiss of white steam that enveloped the front of the platform, the train came to a halt. "Behold," Kelly whispered, his voice barely audible over the hissing steam, "the umbilical cord." Chapter 3: The Cargo of Civilization. The doors opened and the world stepped out. Elias watched, fascinated. Usually new arrivals in Rhyolite looked exhausted, covered in the dust of a stagecoach ride, their lips cracked from dehydration. But these passengers were clean. A woman stepped down, her white dress spotless, holding a parasol. A businessman followed, checking a gold pocket watch, looking annoyed that they were 2 minutes late. They hadn't fought the desert to get here. They had simply waited it out in a velvet seat. But the passengers were the least interesting part. It was the freight cars that mattered. Doors slid open and the unloading began. Elias scribbled furiously in his notebook, cataloging the influx of luxury. Crates of oranges from California, their skin bright and waxy. Blocks of ice, far larger and clearer than the ones brought by wagon. Mahogany furniture wrapped in burlap. Piano parts. Oysters packed in wet seaweed, smelling of the ocean. "Look at that," Kelly pointed with the stem of his pipe. Workers were unloading pallets of red, pressed bricks. Real, kiln-fired bricks. "No more bottles for you, Tom?" Elias asked. Kelly chuckled, a dry sound. "Oh, the bottle house will stand, but look at those bricks. Uniform, perfect, boring. That's what the train brings, Elias. Predictability. Before today, every meal, every board of wood, every drop of whiskey was a gamble. Did the wagon make it? Did the mules die? Now, it's just a schedule." Elias realized the old mason was right. The romance of the isolation was evaporating with the steam. Rhyolite was no longer a secret kingdom, it was just a stop on the line. That evening, the atmosphere in Rhyolite shifted. Elias sat in the hotel lobby, which was buzzing with a new energy. The mail had arrived, not weeks old, but days old. Newspapers from San Francisco were being passed around, their headlines still relevant. The isolation lag was gone. Elias sat at a table near the window, watching the train idle in the station yard. Its headlight cut a solid beam through the darkness, a steady, unblinking eye. He was joined by the station master, a man named Mr. Abernathy, who looked tired but proud. "Impressive machine," Elias said, gesturing to the window. "She's a beauty," Abernathy replied, wiping grease from his hands. "We can haul ore out at a rate of 50 tons a trip. Do you know what that means? It means the lower grade ore, the stuff that wasn't worth the cost of wagon transport. Now it's profitable. This train turns dirt into money." "And it turns time into nothing," Elias mused. "Beg pardon?" "Time," Elias said. "It used to take 3 days to get to the coast. Now it takes hours. You've shrunk the world, Mr. Abernathy." "We've civilized it," the station master corrected. "There's no virtue in slowness, Mr. Thorne. Speed is the currency of the modern age. With this train, we can bring in electric turbines, heavy stamps for the mills, marble for the banks. We are going to build a Chicago in the desert." Elias looked at the man's glowing face. It was the same hubris he had seen in the financiers. They believed the iron rails had conquered the geography. They didn't understand that the rails just lay on top of the desert. They didn't change what was underneath. Later that night, Elias couldn't sleep. The silence of the desert, which he had grown accustomed to, that deep, heavy silence that felt like a blanket, was broken.
Every hour there was a sound from the depot, the clanging of a bell, the venting of steam, the shunting of cars. The iron horse didn't sleep, and so neither could the town. He dressed and walked out toward the edge of town, near Tom Kelly's bottle house. The glass walls of Kelly's home were dark, reflecting the moonlight. Elias found Kelly sitting on his porch, not looking at the town, but looking out at the empty desert to the west. "Too loud for you?" Kelly asked, without turning around. "It's different," Elias admitted, leaning on the fence post. "It feels busy." "It's the sound of time running out," Kelly said enigmatically. "You know, Elias, when I built this house, I used the bottles because they were trash. They were the leftovers. But now, that train will haul the trash away. It will bring in the new, take out the old. It's a cycle." Kelly stood up and walked to the edge of the porch. He tapped one of the glass bottles embedded in his wall. "They say the railroad makes a town permanent," Kelly said. "But I've seen mining camps before. The train makes it easy to strip the mountain bare. And when the mountain is bare, the train stops coming. And when the train stops coming, the town dies," Elias finished. "Faster than it lived," Kelly nodded. "The train is an artery. Cut it, and the body bleeds out in minutes." A whistle blew in the distance, a lonely, mournful sound drifting across the sagebrush. It sounded less like a triumph now, and more like a warning. The next morning, Elias stood on the platform again. He wasn't writing an arrival story this time. He was watching a departure. The train was loaded with ore, heavy sacks of rock that men had died to dig out of the earth. The passengers were boarding, men who had made their fortune and were leaving to spend it in the comfort of San Francisco, and men who had lost everything and were leaving in shame. The conductor checked his watch. "All aboard!" The steam hissed. The massive pistons began to move, slowly at first, then with gathering momentum. Chug, chug, chug. Elias watched the iron horse gather speed. The ground shook one last time, and then the train became a receding black dot, trailing a ribbon of smoke that lingered in the still air. Silence returned to Rhyolite, but it was a fragile silence. The tracks remained, silver scars in the sand, promising that the noise would return. Elias opened his notebook. He looked at the empty tracks and wrote, "The world has found us. We are no longer lost, and perhaps that is the greatest tragedy. The iron horse has brought us ice and oysters and bricks, but it has taken away our solitude. The desert watches with patience. It knows that iron rusts and wood rots, but the sand remains." He closed the book. He walked back toward the town, past the saloons that were already opening for the day, past the bank where the marble floors were being polished. He passed Tom Kelly, who was inspecting a pallet of red bricks with a critical eye. Kelly looked up and caught Elias's gaze. The old mason shrugged, picked up a brick, and dusted it off. He was adapting. He would build with bricks now, because that is what the train brought. But as Elias walked away, he looked back at the bottle house. The early morning sun hit the amber glass, and for a moment, the house seemed to glow brighter than the new red bricks, brighter than the polished steel rails. It glowed with the light of something made by hand, something born of the desert, something that didn't need a timetable to exist. The train had arrived, but the desert was still waiting. The desert holds more secrets buried in the sand. Join us as we uncover them in the next episode. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for what lies beneath.